All right. Welcome, everyone. We are going to get started, but just a reminder that before the lesson, we always have about 5 minutes of chatting. And so for those students who want to maybe ask a few more sort of basic questions or just want to chat a bit, come 5 minutes early, and then, there's sort of a sort of waiting room where we're just relaxing and doing these Maths 24 questions. So I just want to ask, how many of you are newbies today? If you are new, the first time you're joining us, you could just give us a thumbs up. It just helps us to know how much detail to explain in terms of for the people who are here for the first time. And for those who have been here before, I want you to see, can you get the second Maths 24 question? So the first one has fallen. It's already done. But I want to see if the rest of us can do the second one. And then I want the new people who are joining us for the first time, just give us a thumbs up so we have a sense of who is a thumbs up, or who's joining us for the first time today. Okay. So, yeah. Anya, have you got any info there?
Yeah, see, sorry, I see we've got Charity is new, Harry is new. Is there anyone else here that's new today? Oh, we've got Offense. I've got a lot of regulars, which is also lovely to see, and welcome. Thank you all for making time and join us.
Brilliant. So yeah, a very warm welcome to our people joining us for the first time. I just want to tell you who I am. So I'm the main maths teacher. My name is Peter, although I know most students feel comfortable with sort of teacher names, so we'll go with Sir. That's the one, or you can call me Mr. S. And then I'm ably assisted by Miss Anya, who you can call Miss or Ma'am, or Miss A, I think. Anya, what would you prefer from the students?
Whatever floats your boat. I really don't mind.
All right. So we're the teachers running this, and we're both very experienced maths teachers. And yeah, we're just very excited to be with you. And you'll learn more about us as you kind of watch the lesson. And then normally at the beginning of every new unit, we'll give you a little bit of more background information about us. This is actually lesson 5 in a series of 6. And so, and it's around the topic of integers. And so that's what we're going to get back to in a moment. Anya, anything from you before I do any admin announcements?
No, just a quick one, just for the newbies. So if you started, you'll probably be on your 2-week free trial. So that's brilliant. That means you can join us for 2 weeks free. Towards the end of that trial, or some of you might be close towards the end of your trial if you joined recently, you'll receive a notification about payments, like a payment plan or so. Not really a payment plan, but your payment details. So if you pay, then you can continue accessing these lessons and all that. So just a heads up for that. And that's really all from my side. And then, when you get that notification or so, chat to your parents. If you feel like these lessons were worth it and you want to continue coming to them, try and, I don't know what a nice English term is, but try not pull their leg to make you join, because it's really worth it. All right, back to you, sir.
Thanks. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is our group is getting going nicely. We're getting a nice big group going. And so if you have friends who would like some extra help with maths, don't be afraid to tell them about Watobe, because there's really no risk with Watobe. You get an absolutely free trial. And so you only really have to decide if you really like what we're doing to kind of pay. And the payment is actually only 75 Rand a week or 300 Rand a month. And so if you like it and you're finding value, we think that that's very reasonable. Okay, but enough about that. Let us actually get to the topic of integers and what we've been learning about. So I'm going to do a little recap with you. So whenever I think of integers, I think of the number line. I know this number line isn't perfect, but we have 0 in the middle. We have 1, 2, 3. But we also have -1, -2 if we go to the left, -3, -4. So we say that this direction is increasing, and we would say this direction is decreasing. Okay, so if we have a comparison and we have to compare, let's say, -7 and 3, it turns out that actually, even though the 3 looks smaller, it is greater, or the crocodile mouth goes to the 3, and the 7 gets kind of pushed away. And the reason we know this is true is if we look at our number line, here is 3, and 3 is further to the right than, say, -7, which would be all the way down here. Let's keep going, -5. And so throughout integers, you'll constantly see us refer back to this idea of the number line and moving left and right on the number line, depending on if things are increasing or decreasing. Sometimes we may say we're adding for increasing, and we also may say we're subtracting for decreasing. So let's see an example of this. Actually, wait, there's 2 main rules in the section that we have to understand. The one is if we have a double negative, so if we have -3, whenever we have 2 double negatives interacting, we get the opposite operation, which is plus. However, if we have one of each type, then the negatives will end up winning. And we've used some illustrations to help us with that in the past. And if we have +3, then everything is going to stay positive like that. And so the first couple of lessons were about addition and subtraction. And then recently we moved to multiplication and division. And the way that would work is we might have something like this, -3 times 4, or we might have -3 times -4, or we might have -8 divided by -2, or -8 divided by 2. And I actually want to have a little warm-up question now. These are 4 situations. These are 4 little sums. I've called them A, B, C, and D. And using what we've learned in previous lessons and using the rule that I just kind of mentioned above, where if the operations are basically the double negative or the negative positive thing over here, see if that can help you to answer these questions. Now, if you're new, you might feel very confused. I will explain this in a moment, but I just want to see what my students remember from the other day. And I want you to type your answer in the chat in this form. So A something, B something, C something, D something. And I want you to type your answers, even if you get them wrong. I don't mind if you get them wrong, but I want to see you participating so that you feel actively involved in the lesson.
Sir?
Yes.
May I just remind the learners of something that we've done in the previous lessons with regards to this?
Yes.
So for those of you that find these a bit tricky, think of S and N. S for sand and N for Nelly. Oh, I'm very bad with my spelling. But anyway, nonetheless, so you first do your signs. So you must first ask yourself at number A, right, what is a negative times a positive? Get that answer. I'm not going to say what it is, right? Think if it's a positive or negative answer, and then write that symbol down. Then you go and you say, right, what's 3 times 4? And you write your answer. Okay, so think of S for sign. First do your sign. Once you've done that, then you do your numbers. Okay,
so I see the answers coming in nicely. And that's really important. I think this idea of splitting it into 2 parts. First, ask yourself, at the end of the sum, is this thing going to end up being a positive or negative number? And then ask yourself, what is that number going to be? Because this is really what's new in this section. For the first time, we're doing operations with both positive and negative numbers, or the full set of integers. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do these because I can see the answers are flooding in. In the first one, because it's a negative times a positive, remember that the positive isn't written, but it's still there. We end up with a negative and a 12. So negative 12 for the first one. For B, because it's a negative times a negative, those negatives have the effect of knocking each other out, and you end up with a positive, and then you say, what's 3 times 4? It's plus 12. For C, even though it's division now, you ask yourself, what's a negative divided by a negative? It's a positive. What's 8 over 2? It's going to be 4. Notice how I wrote plus 4, but plus 4 is the same as writing just 4. And then for D, we've got minus 8 over 2. Now, in this case, this one over here is a positive, even though I haven't written it. A negative over a positive is a negative. And so then we have 8 over 2, which is minus 4. Okay. So I think that was a nice little reminder of the rules. I do want to see how are we feeling about that? Give us a thumbs up if you're feeling good. Give us a thumbs down if you're feeling a bit like, oh, no, I don't really know what's going on here. Just to give us a feel for how the group is feeling. Okay. So I think our recap is good. I want to do one set of questions from the last lesson. And these are a little bit trickier. Now, in these questions, which we did at the end of the last lesson, the strategy we suggested was the following. We said, do the top first, and then once you've done that, then do the sum for the bottom. And then once you've done those two, do the division at the end, because this division line, this part here is a division line, but you actually have to do a whole bunch of things. Now, I'll do number 10 with you to give you an example, and then you'll do 11 and 12. So in number 10, I'm first going to focus on this bit. And I'm going to say -6 times -4 ends up being a positive. 6 times 4 is 24. And now the top line is done. But I'm not done the whole question yet. The bottom is a negative times a positive, which is negative. 1 times 8, it's -8. Okay. We're still not done, but the question is much simpler. Then we say, what's plus over a minus? It ends up being a minus. 24 divided by 8 is -3. And so our final answer is -3. Now, this is a more complex question because it's putting more things together. But the good news is if you work bit by bit, it's just the same process. So students, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. It's now 17:12. I will give you to 17:14. Again, I'm not worried if you get this wrong, but I do want you to commit to your answer by putting it in the chat. Just the act of committing will help you remember the right answer later anyway. Okay, so over to the students. Ms. Anya, any tips or any comments or bits of wisdom that you can add at this stage?
Yeah, you're just going to add a spotlight so the kids can actually see me. Okay, I showed this to last week's. Let me just quickly write it.
I think we can't see you, Anya. We can't see you. Ooh. I think you spotlighted me, not you, so you can.
No, I should be spotlighted as well. Just let me know in the chat if you can see me.
If you can see Miss Anya, give us a thumbs up. If you can see Miss Anya nice and clear.
Okay, good.
Okay, fantastic.
Right. So it's going to be reversed. So if we're doing fractions, you don't have to do the sum. You don't have to do the sum. But if you're doing fractions like these, and they can be a bit overwhelming, get yourself a piece of paper, right? We all have paper or something lying around. And then cover the bottom. So like what Sir did, Sir used his highlighter, and then he just highlighted the top of green. So then you only do the top, and then once you're done with that, you move your little piece of paper to the top, and then you do the bottom. Then it's not as overwhelming as looking at the whole thing. Obviously, this looks a lot simpler than what's there, but that's just a little tip I think might be useful, especially when we start doing algebra later in years. But that's all from me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ms. Anya. That was lovely. A great tip. Okay, over to the students. They're going to work out 11 and 12, and I'm going to give you some time to do that while I stand up and stretch my legs and get some water. Okay, I see those answers are coming in, which is great.
And I think also these maths is all about it sounds a bit like monotonous in the sense that like it's boring, but it's good to train your brain to go into the same steps each time. So in other words, what ma'am's trying to say is always start at the top. Then you do your signs, then you do your numbers, then you go to the bottom, then you do your signs, then you do your numbers, right? So it starts becoming like a rhyme or something, because once you have that embedded, in other words, like in your head, and you can't forget it, then it doesn't matter how long the question is, it's the same steps over and over, right?
It's like it reminds me of a recipe. It's like when you cook something, and the first time you have to think so much about it, and then the second time you cook it, you're like, oh, like you just know the right way to do it is you slice the onions first and you put them in the, it just becomes like a process you're familiar with. Okay, so for this one, we should be getting that. So for number 11, I get 3. Let me look at the chat and see what it does seem like. 3 is coming through.
Threes. We also had a few negative 3s, and we also had a few 30s and negative 30s. So just little errors.
So the main thing that when you look at number 11, the main thing that I looked at was if I looked at this whole top line, there's a positive, a negative, and a negative, which means that when the two negatives are multiplied, and this is what might have confused some people, like there's a couple of ways you can do it, but a negative times a negative will give me a positive, right? So that's going to be positive. The sign in front of 5 is going to be positive, and what's a positive times a positive? It's a positive. So making sure you get the sign right is important. Then on the bottom part, -2 times -10, a negative times a negative is also going to be a positive. And then ask yourself, how many times does 20 go into 60? It goes in 3 times. Sometimes people would even do it a bit like this, where they would say 20 goes into 63 times. So that is the one for that. And then for number 12 is quite a bit. Now, some of you, there's actually multiple ways to do this. And if you did it differently, that's not a problem. But what I'm going to do, and I mentioned this in the last lesson, is there's an uneven number of negatives. What does it mean, uneven? Uneven means it's not even, I guess. So if there were 2 or 4 or 6 negatives, it would be even. But with 3 negatives, the final answer is going to end up being negative. So I know when I do this question, it's going to end up being negative on top, because a negative times the negative is a positive, but then that positive gets times by this negative, and we end up there. But I haven't done the numbers. So 12 times 6 times 1 is 72. And that's the top bit done. Now, what about the bottom? Now, the bottom has 2 negatives, an even number of negatives. So I know that that's going to be positive. And this number is positive. So altogether, it's going to be positive. Then I say 3 times 3 times 1, and it's 9. Okay, final step. What's a negative divided by a positive? It is a negative. What's 72 divided by 9? It is 8. And we get that. I want to just quickly check if students, how they're feeling. Could you give us a thumbs up if you're feeling good and we're ready to move on? Thumbs down if you're like, I want to do another question like this just to make sure. So thumbs up if you want to move on. Thumbs down if you're like, just another one like this to be sure. Okay. Okay, and again, don't be afraid.
Also,
go for it.
Sorry, sir. And also, especially for the newbies, I should have said this in the beginning, but remember, guys, you can always access the older, or not the older, but the previous lessons on the Watobe site. So if you ever feel like, I kind of forgot what Sir explained last week, you can always go access them. So yeah, I just wanted to remind you all.
So that's actually a very good point, Ms. Anya. So the Watobe website has recordings of all the 4 lessons before this, and it's on YouTube as well. Although the website's a much easier thing to navigate. So if you're joining us for the first time and you want to catch up, then that is available to you. Okay, I think it's time to get going with a little bit more. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to now start mixing things together. And I'll do the first one with you. Let me even make this huge. So it's like the only thing in our life is these 4 questions. Okay. And I'm going to go through the first couple with you. Now, if I say to you, please simplify or evaluate these questions. Teachers will often use the word like evaluate, which means find the value of, or sometimes they'll say simplify. Or sometimes they'll even just say work out. If we look at this question over here, this question over here is an addition question. We're adding 2 numbers together. This one over here is a division question. This one is a subtraction. This one is a subtraction. This one is an addition. This one is an addition. But they're not normal subtractions or additions. And the reason they're not is because of the fact that they have numbers right next door to each other. So in the first one, we're saying 4 plus something, but the plussing, there's almost like there's a plus and a minus next to each other. And students will get confused by what we need to do there, because this is going back to previous lessons. Whereas this one looks a lot like what we're doing today. So I'm going to do the first 3 with you, and then we're going to do batches of 3 and see how you guys go. But remember, we're bringing back lessons from earlier in this series. So what we did previously is we said, look, the thing that's making stuff difficult is that these are neighbors. What happens when you plus a minus? I want you guys to put this in the chat. What do you think is going to happen if I simplify this operation to one thing? What is plus minus 7? What is plus minus going to end up being? What sign is going to win? I want you to put it in the chat. Angelina, I think you are on the money. Kayla, Micah, you guys, you're on the money. Okay, so we can ignore the plus 4 in the beginning because plus 4 is just 4 anyway. But plus minus 7 is the same as saying 4 minus 7. And now we say to ourselves, if we're at 4 and we're moving and we're going to the left by 7 units, where do we end up? We end up at minus 3. And what we did at earlier lessons is we actually went to the number line each time and we said, look, here's 4. And I just go 1, 2, 3, 4. That will get me to 0. And then I go 1, 2, 3. And that gets me down to minus 3. We don't always do that, but that's the thinking. For the second one, minus 8 divided by plus 2, we've just done questions like this. We first ask ourselves, what is a minus divided by a positive? It's going to be a minus. And then what is 8 divided by 2? It's going to be 4. So that's minus 4. Okay, and then the last one with the example, we have another problem again. What happens when we have minus a minus? Can you put this in the chat for me? And I want everyone to do this. What's minus a minus going to be the same as? If you had to rewrite it. So you've got the minus 9 here. That stays where it is. But what happens when you have minus a minus? Okay, it becomes a plus. So to solve this question, I now need to start at minus 9 on the number line and move 9 units to the right. So here's minus 9 on the number line. And if I move up 9 units in that direction, I'm going to end up at 0. So minus 9 plus 9 is going to give me 0. Okay, so I am now going to ask you to do this set of questions here. Oh, no, I'm making too many. I'm going to call this question. Sorry, guys, there's just so much going on my screen that it's getting a bit overwhelming. That's A, that's B, that's C, D, E, F. And I want everyone to try and do A, B, C, D, E, F. and just see how it goes. I know I'm pushing you now, but just see how it goes. And then after we do this, I'm going to give you some feedback, and then we're going to take a little brain break. So push yourself, commit, and then put your answers in the chat. Miss Anya wants to see your answers so she can give you some feedback. And we know, I know I keep saying this, but research has shown if you're actively involved in this process, even if you give the answers wrong now, you remember the right answers more if you commit to the process of putting it in the chat.
Also, to add on, especially, this is more for like especially A, B, and C, because it's all addition and subtraction. Read it like a book. So how do you read a book? From left to right. So that's what I suggest. So one step at a time, left to right.
But it's kind of like a fitness class when the teacher's kind of throwing in some old moves that you learned before. We're starting to, like, maybe it's called like a remix. We're taking skills from before and we're adding them to what we've learned recently. And so you have to remember, oh, this process goes with this question. This process goes with this question. And then if you have questions, actually put them in the chat and we will answer. Otherwise, if you'd like to ask audible questions, now is a great time. So if you put your hand up, Miss Anya will come to you and then I will happily reply to you live.
No questions. Oh, we've got a hand from Mosa. I might be pronouncing it wrong. Mosa. Over to you, Mosa.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Sir, can you please help me with number A? I don't understand it.
Okay. So number A really boils down to understanding the part that I'm going to highlight now, which is what happens when you go minus plus 6. If you can figure out what happens when you go minus plus 6, the question will get easier. And one of the main rules that we use in integers is if we have a negative and a positive, or if we have this situation, so negative, positive, if the signs are opposites, we always end up with the net effect, the overall effect being a negative. So if we have these two situations, where the signs are opposite, you're going to end up having a negative. If both the signs are negative, or they're both the same, you're always going to end up with a positive. But this is only true in the situations where they're neighbors. So like the minus and the plus here are neighbors. So you first do this step where you go minus 3 plus 6. But now you still have to figure out what does it mean to go minus 3 plus 6. And this is where the number line is very useful. Yeah.
Should it not be minus 3 minus 6?
Sorry, I'm being silly there. I had a moment. Thank you, Anya, for jumping in. Because those are different, the negative should prevail. So it's minus 3 minus 6. You see, even teachers can make mistakes, guys. You've got to stay on your toes. So now the way I think about it is I start at minus 3 and I've got to take away 6. So minus 3 take away 6 means going off in this direction 6 times, which gets me to minus 9 as my answer. So that will be that one over there. So I hope that's helpful. I think there's another question now.
Sando's got a question. Sando, you can unmute yourself.
So my question is, when it comes to the multiplication ones,
Yes.
Do we do like normal multiplication, just you add a negative sign or just leave it?
Okay.
When it comes to a positive.
Okay, so you're looking at D at the moment, I think.
Yes, sir.
So if you look at, this is a straight multiplication. What you do is you ask yourself, what is a negative times a positive? A negative times a positive is going to end up being a negative.
Negative.
Then you ask yourself, what's 1 times 9?
It's 9.
It's 9. And so you get that.
Thank
So-
you, sir.
Pleasure. Okay. Are there any other questions in the chat, Anya, that I've missed? I'm not looking at the chat stream right now.
No, I've been keeping an eye on the chat. People are just sharing their answers. I had one question about what happens 3 times a positive with a positive, but I've explained and you've explained it. So I think we're all good, sir.
Fantastic. Okay, let me do some of these answers now. I'm always going to do a simplifying first step where I go, this is going to end up being 6 minus 9. And once I've done that first simplifying step, I can then see my answer is going to be minus 3 for this one. For the next one, my simplifying step is going to be plus plus. Now, plus plus actually stays a plus 2. And now I have to think of the number line. I'm starting at -7 and I'm going up by 2. Now, if I go up by 2, I'm actually going to end up with minus 5. I think that might have caught out a few people because when you add 2, it's like you want to go to 9, but because you're going up the number line, it's actually going to be minus 5. D I've done already. E, a negative times a negative is a positive, and 8 times 6 is 48. And then -4 divided by -2, well, a positive divided by a negative is a negative. And then 4 divided by 2 is 2. You could also write this as 4 divided by -2, and that means the same thing. Okay. So sometimes students would benefit from rewriting, and you're welcome to do that. Okay, before we have our break, give me a thumbs up if you feel like you're doing okay. Give me a thumbs down if you feel like, oh, sir turned up the heat, and I'm still trying to catch up. So give us an indication with the thumbs, and Anya, if you could just get a sense of how that looks. And then I want everybody to stand up for a second, and I'm going to do a little exercise with you so that you can...
So while you do that,
yeah,
I'm just going to answer a quick question in the chat from Kiatle. Sorry, I'm learning names, so please help me. So for division, you do the same rules you would have multiply. So I can't remember the numbers now. I think it was like something. I think it was 4 divided by -2 or something like that. Okay. So then you first ask yourself, right, what's a positive divided by a negative? It'll be a negative. Okay, you write that down. And then once you've got that, you say, right, 4 divided, no, sorry, I think it was 8 divided by 2 or something like that. I can't recall. I think it was the last one. I think it was A, B, C, D, E. It was either E or F. It was a division sum.
Okay. So plus, what was the question?
So we can't see your screen. We can only see the top tab.
Oh, okay. Let me undo that.
Sorry, I know you wanted to do a break now, but
No, it's fine.
Just
there we go. So where is it? So what is the question?
Yeah, that last one where the answer is -2.
Yeah. So plus 4 divided by -2. I was just saying you can also write this, and it means the same thing if you wrote it like that.
Okay, let me know in the chat that answers your question. And so while we at it, Shay, before we do a stretch, I see we've got one hand up from Kai Lichle.
Okay, go ahead.
Kai Lichle, you can unmute. There we go.
Yeah.
Ma'am, we have a test of maths. I know this has nothing to do with your lesson, but there's a sum that confuses me.
Okay. So I'm losing your audio. Can I suggest that you put your question in the chat, and then Miss Anya will answer you in the chat, I promise. In fact, Miss Anya, you can even, if you want to, you can even add, I think you can scribble something and add, yeah, cool. So I'm going to go to the brain break now, just because I think it's important that we stand up. So if you could stand up, and then I want you to have in your hand a pen. I've done this one before. For those who haven't done it, you're going to do it with your dominant hand. For those who have done it before, you're doing it with your non-dominant hand. And it's called a pen flip. And the way a pen flip works is you can see I'm holding the bottom end of the koki like this. And I'm going to try and throw it so it only rotates once. Oh, like you can see what I did there, but let's see. Okay, so I'm holding it on this end, throw it in the air, and I caught it on this side. Now, I've done this before with some of you. So you're going to switch to your non-dominant hand, say your left hand, and you're going to throw it, and you're going to try and flip it so it turns only once in the air. And then, that wasn't bad, look there. Oh. And that should mean that you really have to concentrate to do it. And it should free your brain from the trappings of the maths for a second or two. If you manage to do it properly, if you manage to do it so it only rotates once in the air and you catch it on the same end that you threw it, I want you to give us a smiley face in the chat. But you have to do it so that it only spins once and you catch it like I just did now. Look at that. Getting quite good at this. So you have to give us a smiley face in the chat if you manage to do it. But it's hard. Don't be surprised. And then I've actually got one other little brain break question for you to amuse you. Can anybody solve this problem? This is your other brain break for the day. So we're completely stepping away from what we were doing for a second to give our brains a break. Can anybody tell me? So the question is, you get 3 McDonald's milkshakes and that gives you 30. This gives you this. And my question to you is, what is a hamburger plus a packet of chips times a cool drink? That is what I want to know. And I'm going to let you take 2 minutes to try and figure out this brain break. So if 3 McDonald's milkshakes give you 30, and a milkshake plus a burger gives you 20, and this gives you this, how much is the bottom line going to be equal to? And a definite shout out and victory speech from the person who gets it. So answers are coming in. Who is going to be the champion of the mystery puzzle? Oh, it involves square roots. Oh, interesting. So I see lots of answers already. So Ms. Anya, if you could just see who got it first, if you could just monitor the chat, but I'm going to do the answer, or at least try to do the answer. I haven't done this one before.
The first one I got it right.
Sorry, I just hit the wrong button.
The first one I got right was charity, and the answer is 15. And
okay,
if it's not right, then I'm sorry.
That's fine. I was thinking if 3 of something give 30, then 1 milkshake has to be equal to 10, right? And so if this is 10, this is 10, and that's 10, then each of these have to be 5 to give us 20, which means each hamburger is 5. And now if I have 5 plus a packet of chips plus a packet of chips is 9, that would give me 2. And so a hamburger is 5 plus 2 times 10, which gives me 20. What did you get, Miss Sanya?
Check carefully, sir. By the burger plus chips gives you 9. Those are 2 packets of chips each.
It caught me. Oh my goodness. It caught me.
I think we caught a lot of kids with that one.
There's 2 packets of chips here, which means each of them need to be 1, which gives us 5 plus 1 times 10, which is 15. That was good. I enjoyed that. So who's the shout out going to this time?
To charity.
Charity was on the money there. But a lot of people who got 25, I'm right there with you, as you saw. I know exactly how you got that. Okay. Well, that was kind of fun just to, just do something a little different. Give us, yeah, I think that was, we'll definitely try and do a few more like that to add to our brain breaks. Okay, guys, let's go back to what we were doing and let's do a few more of these. So I'm going to give you 9 at this point. So you are going to fly solo for me for a bit. And it's a good chance to test what you know. So you are going to do, we've done those ones already, so that's gone. And I'm going to call this A, B, C, D, E, F. A, B, C, E, F, G, H, I. And I want you, before I send you off, there's one, I'm going to let you choose one question for me to do as an example, but I want everybody to vote. So if you want me to do A as an example, put A in the chat. But if you'd like me to do E, put the letter E in the chat. And I will let you choose the example that I will do. We are going to do all 9 of these, but I want to see which one is the most popular for me to have a look at. Okay. Sakile, you can only vote once. So which one would you like me to do?
We've got quite a few E's.
Okay, let's look at E. So first of all, I could write E as +6 divided by +3. That means exactly the same thing as what's here. So then I would ask myself, what is a positive divided by a positive? It's simply a positive, right? So this one over here is a positive. This one over here is a positive. Therefore, this must be a positive. Now I'm just left with what number? 6 divided by 3 is 2. The answer is 2, +2. Okay, now I would like everyone else to do the remaining 8, and I'm going to start to push you now. You're going to get 3 minutes to do these. So the speed is going up. 3 minutes. It's like a practice and drill session here. So I'm reminded of Ms. Anya's words earlier in the lesson where she said, do the sign of the number first and then do the amount. So in A, ask yourself, what's a positive number divided by a negative? Then ask yourself, what is the number divided by the number? Okay, I see Micah has got his answers in. I'll see in a moment if I agree. I like the way you did ABC all together there, Micah. That looks, it's nice and easy for me to read. So for me, I know that the sign of A is going to be negative. I won't give the number away. This next one, I actually have to use a different technique because it's not a division one. This next one, B, I have to think about what is a negative, what's a negative next to a negative? What's minus a minus? And you need to simplify that first. So in some ways, students, you can see a straight division or straight multiplication is actually quite straightforward. When you have 2 negatives next to each other or something like that, in an additional subtraction question, you have to do an extra step to deal with the bit in yellow. And so you need to think, what is the step I need to follow? Okay, so in A, I said that's what's 5 divided by 5? It's 1. So I get negative 1. In B, 4 minus minus 1 is the same as 4 plus 1. And 4 plus 1 is 5.
So,
yeah.
I see we've got a hand from Ria Bates where I think they want to ask a question.
Please go ahead, Ria Betsware. Come on, give it a go. I'd love to hear your question. Okay, I'll just wait. But yeah. Anyone? Okay. For C, I'm going to get -12. Okay, so we've got the first 3 on the board. Now, D is a bit tricky because D, I have to first deal with this. Same with F. I have to deal with that bit first. I'm actually going to highlight. I have to deal with this bit. I have to deal with this bit. And then I is a little bit easier. In each of these questions, you have to first ask yourself, what is plus or minus? Because plus or minus is a bit of a weird, it simplifies down to that. So you have to do that step first. Then you can move on, but you have to sort out this bit over here first. So then you should get, okay, I'm just going to slow down, but I see that numbers are coming through. So I'll give a little bit more time for the last 4. Okay, Scarlett's answers are in, and Micah's answers. Don't be afraid to put your answers in the chat, guys. I want to see them. CYPWE. The answers are in. I see Malcolm's answers are in, and Jaluna's answers are in. Keep them coming, guys. So with F, +8 is just good old 8. Plus -6 is just -6, and then I get 2. For G, +9 is just a normal 9. Minus +9 is the same as 9 minus 9, which gives me 0. And then just the last 2, H and J. So -5 stays the same. Okay. -5 stays the same. Plus -9 is -9. And now what's -5 take away 9? If we could just mute there, there's a bit of noise coming through there from someone. Ilhama's answers have come through. Annalisa's answers have come through. I'll give it a little bit more time. And Amakle, I see your hand is raised. What can I do for you, Amakle? If you can unmute yourself. Amakle? Hello.
Yes, sir.
How's it going?
Hello, sir. I don't understand how you got the answer to D.
D. Okay.
Sir?
In D, the most important step is the bit in yellow.
Yes, sir.
So first of all, you have to learn, if you plus a negative, you need to learn that that ends up being a subtraction or negative. So that's the first step. The second step is figuring out what -8 take away 6 is. And when we deal with -8 take away 6, I always use the number line. And I say I'm starting at -8. If I take away 6, I have to go in the left direction. And what do I get if I go 6 units to the right, to the left from 8? Well, I get 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's why I end up with -14. A similar thing is going to happen in H. So if I look at H, I'm at -5 plus -9 is the same as -5 minus 9. And if I think of where -5 is on the number line, and I take away 9, I have to go in that direction. And if I go 9 units, what's 9, added on to 5, it's going to be 14, but it's going to be -14 because I'm going in the left direction. And then the last one is going to be a division question. Now, the division questions are actually easier than the plus or minusing questions because I just say, what is a negative divided by a positive? I know the final answer is a negative. Then I say, what's 9 divided by 3? And I get that. So I know that I have pushed you a bit further today. Today's main idea has been to mix together adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing. And I want you to take note that whenever I have a subtracting or an adding question, I have to do these steps in yellow that I'm going to get rid of the other ones. But basically on the screen now, whenever you have a look, if you look at this question here, there's always the double negative becomes a positive. In the question over here, plus or minus becomes a minus. So whenever you're adding or subtracting, you have to do the step which basically simplifies it. When you're dealing with multiplying or dividing, it's actually quite simple because you say, first of all, what is my sign and what is my number? And those are the two steps. And so that's the main idea that I want you to take away today, is this idea of a certain process for adding and subtracting, a certain process for multiplying and dividing. Now, Miss Anya, I see that lots of questions have come through. Could you just release the poll that asks the students how they found the lesson today? And then I would love to take a question or one or two questions from the students who maybe need some more clarifying. So are there any hands or questions in the chat that we can address?
We've got a hand from Mosa again, and then before Mosa speaks, just a reminder, I've released the poll. Just please give us a rating from 1 to 4 of what you thought about this lesson. All right, over to you, Mosa.
Okay.
Ma'am, sir.
Yeah, hello.
Can you please explain 8, because I don't understand how you got negative 14.
Negative 14, H. Okay. Let's focus on H for a second. I know there's a lot going on. First of all, when we start H, I want you first to realize that it's a plus question. I'm adding two numbers, but life is difficult because I'm adding a negative number. And that is confusing. Like, how do you add a negative? So what I'm going to do is I know there's a rule that says plusing a minus. If a plus and a minus are next to each other, the minus wins out. And that is an equivalent question. Now I have to ask myself, what is minus 5 take away 9? In this situation, I go first to the minus 5. Where is minus 5 on the number line? It's below 0. So let's say there's 0, it's there. Now, if I take away from a number, I have to go in that direction. And if I go 9 units from minus 5, what am I going to get to? I get to minus 6, minus 7, minus 8, minus 9, minus 10, minus 11, minus 12, minus 13, minus 14. And so that's why the final answer would be minus 14. Okay. What I want to do now, guys, is I have to leave this lesson because I'm going to my grade 11 class, but Miss Anya is going to stay on the line and she is going to answer questions. And you're well done for today. I can see that you guys, I know this is hard work, and I know that it's kind of like you get it, and then I go and mix it all together, and then you get a bit unsure. Now, this next lesson, what we do, the last lesson, is we're going to keep practicing stuff like this. So we're going to keep practicing things like this, just to make sure you know how to do it together. And then we're going to basically finish off by consolidating all our knowledge. Okay. And so, yeah, I look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. And I really hope that you have a fantastic day tomorrow. And we will meet again on Wednesday. Ms. Anya, I hand over to you as I pop across to our grade 11s. And yeah, if you could just take a screenshot of the poll when students are finished. Cheers, guys. I'll see you tomorrow Wednesday.